So we should be live now. So give it one moment. Cannon, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. First, I just want to check in. Everything good in your home? Everyone
Yes.
happy, healthy?
Yes, we're surviving. Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm really glad to be able to have this conversation, Cannon. You are not only an expert within our own faith community, but you are an expert in regards to age-friendly communities and supporting some of our older folks in our neighborhood. So I would love to just have you kind of speak to your experiences and what you've been doing with the city for the past several years.
Okay. I am serving on the Senior Affairs Commission for the City of Dallas. It's a 2017, since 2017, and all of the work has been done in District 7. District 7 and District 9 are really East Dallas. So any of our conversation about East Dallas usually include both District 7 and District 9. And in those two districts, there are right at 34,000 residents that are 50 and older. So it's a huge population. I served one term under Tiffany Young. I'm currently serving at the appointment of Council Member Adam Basildua. And on that commission, I have chaired the transportation and outdoor spaces, which are two components of the age-friendly plan that the City of Dallas is working toward.
When did that plan get put in place? In 2017?
Mike Rawlings actually signed that agreement back in 2014, and it took about 3.5 years for the council to actually act on it. So today we are moving all city resources toward, it's actually the World Health Organization who established domains of age-friendly or livability indexes. And so that's pretty much what we're adhering to now.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Yeah. So in your position, have you been able to discern or hear what the needs are of folks that fall under your purview with the Senior Affairs Commission and committee? Is there some needs that you see arising within a very large population of folks in our area?
Actually, what we have done through the commission is partner with Dallas County, partner with nonprofit organizations. So we have been, for the last 3.5 weeks, actively working on getting a safety net in place for the people that will reach out to us. One of the biggest challenges that we have right now, Mitchell, is providing access, communication. How do we reach these people?
Right.
So from the city's perspective, what we've done is we are conducting weekly teleconferences, Zoom, much like you and I are doing right here, with council members, with Dallas County, with one commissioner and me serving on that ad hoc committee that the mayor's got. So again, we've been working with parks, we've been working with Dallas County, and we've actually published some resources to the community. But something that we're going to have to do, and I'm hoping to draft every organization that I'm associated with to creating phone trees, and that we can adopt 2 or 3 older residents and just check on them from time to time.
Right.
Fortunately, in East Dallas, while we do 75228 zip code has the largest number of people over 50 anywhere in the city. So
you said 75228?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the most populated. And what we've got to do for those people is, like I said, put some sort of phone tree in place or some means that we can actually call and check on people. Right. I'm getting a lot of phone calls from older residents they don't need anything. They just need somebody to check on them.
Right.
And isolation prior to a pandemic was already a number one problem for people as they age. There's two things that people are worried about, and that's being alone and where are they going to live. So the pandemic has only made the isolation even more compound. But the upside to that is we're all in isolation, so we can now understand what that truly feels like.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, right? I mean, I know some of our older residents may experience the technological kind of divide that exists within our community, but I think that's also just a false assumption that we make. I know a lot of folks in our church setting who are definitely well into retirement are very active in social media spaces. So I think that part of what we need to be willing to do is just take the initiative and begin reaching out to those folks that may be prone to isolation
Right.
because of their age or maybe because of their social location. And I think it's not that complicated, right? I mean, I don't think we should overcomplicate the matter. It is a good thing and an easy thing for us to just reach out and say, hey, just thinking about you. Is there anything you need? And yeah, so that's good to hear that there's not a crisis of resources or needs that are kind of beginning to stack up. I imagine that, as this goes on, maybe some more stuff will bubble up. But what you're hearing is that mainly folks just need someone to kind of check in on them and make sure that they're doing okay.
Right. And I think that at this stage of the pandemic, that we're okay. The uncertainty comes from we don't know how long it's going to go on. There are a number of foundations who are stepping up and really opening funding streams that have not been opened since the recession of 2008. So, I mean, there's strategic initiatives being put in place to take care of these people. Mm-hmm. The one thing on the isolation side, Mitchell, that it takes a while for an older person to actually open up. So there may be some needs that start revealing themselves right. as they form trust with someone who's regularly checking on them. I have right. gotten phone calls for help from older residents who are calling on behalf of someone else. Right. And when I get calls like that, that kind of concerns me. Because it shows that there's an underlying need out there that we're not realizing yet.
Right.
So we got to start building trust with some of the older people, and they're going to open up. If they don't have food, they're going to open up. If they can't get to their doctor's appointment, they're going to open up and let us know that too. So
sure. Yeah. We so at the church we've started a kind of a Google form that's easy to fill out. It connects folks who are willing to help with folks who maybe need help. The biggest challenge is just having folks be honest about that form and knowing that it exists and accessing it when they actually find themselves in a situation where they need something. And I think you're right, it's all about trust, right? And how we develop trust and how we cultivate trust is important. It's not something that just can be turned on when we're in an experience like this.
So. Yes. And let me talk just a little bit about the resources. I can hear your puppy.
I know. Hold on. Let me go see what she's doing. Come on. She thought we left her, which is funny because we haven't left in like weeks. So go ahead, Kanan. Sorry.
Anyway, we put together a list of resources, and I've got it on my Facebook page. We're going to keep updating that as the weeks go on. This ad hoc committee working through the mayor's office, the more resources that come online, we're just going to try to push them out as much as we can. That list would put people in contact with any rental assistance, food assistance, transportation, anything that they may need. So I don't think anybody has a unique need that we have not thought of. It's just a matter of connecting that person with the resource that's available.
Sure. From your perspective, what's the biggest challenge right now in terms of the going back to that building trust? Is it, I know the city has organizations that are probably a well-trusted brand and institutions that folks know of. I know in our area, has a lot of trust within some of these neighborhoods. I know that the city and the work y'all have done has probably helped cultivate that trust. Are there other ways that we can kind of make ourselves known and begin to foster that trust? Is that something that we can do, and how do we go about doing
that? We spent a long time talking about this yesterday at the City Hall meeting. Initially, what we're going to have to do is probably a cold call to a lot of these older people, introduce ourselves, and with each one of them, just start to build a personal relationship with them.
Yeah.
And whether we use church directories or water bills or whatever it is, and just start putting lists together. My first pass at it, which I hope to have completed within this week, is finding volunteers that once we do locate the people are ready to adopt 3 people and just check on those 3 people.
Sure.
And like I jokingly said, I was going to call on every organization. Some of the organizations that have already expressed interest in volunteering in some way are employee resource groups through all of our corporate partners.
Right.
We may have groups in the church too, Mitchell, that want to just take it on as a project. And the value, immediate value is of course obvious, but the long-term value is to establish lifelong connections with these individuals.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Any of us who've ever done anything like that, especially in a difficult situation. This is the most difficult situation that any of us have ever endured on a global level in our lifetime. So those sorts of relationships will be forged for the rest of our lives. So there's huge value both ways in it.
Right. It is kind of amazing that even in the midst of this, and, I know that we wouldn't wish this scenario on anyone, and obviously it's global, so we're all being affected by it. There is this unique opportunity here to maybe re-engage with folks that we don't do on a regular basis. The amount of folks who have said, I've just started to get to know my neighbors because we're all outside the house just walking in the street, or the amount of times that I've been out and people have just waved to me is far greater right now than it has ever been. And so there is this unique opportunity, I think, that we as a city have to really invest in one another. And I'm really proud of the city. I've said this to all the city officials that I've spoken to in this format. I told Paula this and Dan Mitschke, I'm really proud of the city, and I'm really proud of the county. I sleep better at night knowing that I live in Dallas and that we're taking this seriously, and that we've got good officials in place to help us lead through this change. And because I have that kind of relief, I can put some of my energy about worry and anxiety, I can put it into a more productive place. And that is getting to know folks and doing my part to ensure that my neighbors are taken care of. And so the minute you get an action item on that front with contacting folks, I hope you will let me know, and I can let the church know, and our community know, because I think there's nothing more valuable than just simply beginning to build that trust and hopefully establishing some new relationships that last well beyond the shelter in place order.
Right. Thank you. I will certainly do that. Yeah.
Good. Can you talk to me about, I know that we can talk a lot about needs and they'll be contextual and we can have a good idea about that, but I would imagine there are also assets, right? So it's not just that our older residents have needs, but they also have gifts. Is there a way that we can begin to leverage some of those gifts, or begin to kind of mine those and find out what those are and put those to use? And how would we go about doing that?
That's an excellent question. And we've had some conversation with two of the local foundations in possibly opening just designated funds to support older people. And I expect to hear something back from one of those two foundations in the next few days. But much of the grassroots approach to finding volunteers is going to apply to developing donors. Once we can put together a compelling story on the needs, I fully expect that there are people right now wanting to give and they don't know where to give to. Mm-hmm. And we've had that, Rafik and I have had that same need. Oftentimes people would rather give to an individual or to a specific need, and that's where we are. If you can tell me that I can give you X number of dollars toward a food program, I'm probably going to give it to you. But if it's just general needs of a general population, mm-hmm. That's what's unique about this pandemic. This isn't, a disease so much as it is that just the need to live. I mean, to find a place to live, to find food to eat, and leave the research to the researchers. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but we're getting there, Mitchell.
Yeah. I know, like, we're all kind of caught flat-footed here, right? I mean, It's not like we have the pandemic plan and we just dust it off and enact it. This is rather unprecedented for us. And one of the things that I thought was interesting, you said that the two greatest fears for our older residents may be isolation, loneliness, which is totally understandable, and a place to live. Right. Can you talk to me about, is the city taking any steps? And I've heard some conflicting reports on this. Are in the city of Dallas, are evictions allowed, and or are our older residents at least safe right now in their homes without being evicted for rent payments or apartment payments or things like that?
It's not completely settled. In fact, it was on the city council agenda for today. They are safe for the next 30 days, but beyond that, we're going to have to do some more work, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Because I know that, it might be 30 days, but it also might be, let's say the pandemic ends in June, it might be till August until some stuff returns to normal. So obviously let us know if we can be of any help on the housing front, which continues to be a really big issue here in Dallas. Is there anything else you want to let us know? Anything you want to kind of make available to us or have us turn our attention to?
Yes. Something to think about. I have noticed the way people are processing what's happening. Their age is affecting how they're processing it. And it's very interesting to watch. And it caused me to go back and look at someone today who is 80 years old. What they've seen in their lifetime, starting at a very young age of the Great Depression, mm-hmm. And moving through the dropping of 2 atomic bombs, the assassination of a president, mm-hmm. All the way up to a space shuttle exploding with the teacher on board that we all watched happen. Mm-hmm. All of this stuff for someone at that age, and I certainly didn't live through the Great Depression, but the things that have happened in my life at 60 years old, what's happening now is bigger than anything I've ever seen, but it's not affecting me to the degree that it's affecting some younger people. So the value of age it brings some comfort that will be okay. Yeah. it brings some security. And there are lots of young people who are in touch with me. And I know it's simply just that somebody will say, we're going to be all right. It's going to get wicked, but it's going to be okay. I think it's just really important for any of us who are of my age or older to realize that we do have that responsibility. And I have also learned with the younger members of my family, I have to be careful with what I say because they seem to take it with far more seriousness than I intend for it to be taken. So, but having said that, I mean, we can use that, to our advantage. But I think too, the other thing I wanted to spend just a minute on was just the benefits of intergenerational relationships.
Sure.
Mitchell. Each Sunday, I know for our church there at White Rock, one of the things we enjoy, my husband and I enjoy a lot, is the children's time at church.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anybody who has had children, that's really one of the few times I'm exposed to children anymore. Intergenerational relationships bring so much to both the young and the old, and I don't think we many times stop to consider it. We talked about isolation. Through intergenerational relationships, we can fix that. According to the U.S. Census, there's roughly a third of all elders or older people who live by themselves. And when you're talking about 300 million people, that's a lot of people who are living in isolation. And many of them have no children or grandchildren. So there's a value in that to an older person. The younger people, as I've already mentioned, we can bring stability and tradition to their lives as well. Any young person that has a relationship with an older person, whether it's a grandparent or older neighbor or someone who they go to church with, and have sustained those long-term relationships, have a greater sense of confidence and belief in the future, and actual respect for human life. And those are lessons that cannot be taught any other way other than by building strong intergenerational relationships. And we all need a role model because we have seen and what I've seen in the last 25 years is the media has pushed us towards some sort of young, modern, forever young, to where we've lost the value or appreciation for the role model aspect of those older than us. So there's huge opportunity for us to rebuild the village again. And the term elders or advisors, those were titles that were given for a reason, so that many of the mistakes would not be made again, whatever those are. I think the pandemic is going to teach a lot of lessons, and I think it behooves every one of us to see what we can glean from it that we can take with us from here to make the world a better place afterwards. And I think intergenerational relationships are going to be one of those byproducts. And I intend to capitalize on it, to be honest. So.
Yeah. I keep thinking of there's the idea of wisdom. It is not something that can be manufactured in a vacuum, and it's probably best obtained through experience. And when folks who maybe are not in intergenerational relationships, they have no access to the wisdom of elders within our community. I think it's a beautiful reminder that that is still available to us, and maybe even more so in a time like this. I think about the city of Dallas and kind of the ways we've not probably, for a long time, we didn't invest in age-friendly community spaces. I know that there aren't any quote unquote senior citizen centers here in the city at all.
Right.
And I know that a lot of our recreational centers are not age friendly themselves. And so it really becomes a responsibility, I think, of just citizens of the city and neighbors to ensure that we maybe start investing in one another. And I can't wait to see what comes of this, Cannon. So I'm just grateful that we have folks like you helping to lead the charge. And I know that our city's gonna come out of this with some really unique opportunities because people like you are helping to lead. And so I just want to say thank you for that. Also, of course, if you have any information that you think would be helpful for us to pass on, please don't hesitate to get it to me, and I'll make sure it gets out to our church. And I'm looking forward to maybe some new ideas kind of popping up here in the next few weeks about how we can connect with each other, because it looks like we're going to be in this kind of posture for the foreseeable future.
Yes, and be sure to send anyone to us that cannot find help, because I mean that I want to connect those people with someone who can help them. And I will get this proposal over to you and several other people, and we'll just start building the network.
Yeah, and so we actually on our website, Ken, I don't know if you've been there to look at our COVID resource page, but we have different groupings, and so we can actually create one for our older residents and a whole list of resources. So we'll be happy to post those there.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Cannon.
Thank you, Mitchell. Thank you very much. Thanks
really good to see you. I look forward to when I can see you again in person.
Okay, take care.
But until then, we'll talk soon. Bye, Cannon.
All right.